begin the interview now. John, when you were a civilian, can you talk about, we're talking about before the war, what were you doing, what kind of work were you performing, were you in school? Just talk a little bit about before the war.
Yeah, well, I went through the Depression, and prices were fantastic. You could buy a car for $1,200. You could buy a home for $4,000. At the time before I was inducted, when I left high school, and I graduated in '39, and since at that time, every person that graduated, we felt we owed a debt to our families, not the way it is now. So I figured I'd go 2 weeks and see if I can get a job. If I couldn't get a job, I was going to join the CCC camp because I didn't feel I should loaf all summer. So I joined the CC camp. They sent $25 home, and I kept $5. All right. When I came back from the CC camp, I got a job in General Electric, working in the radio department, and I was making about $26 a week. So I wanted to make more money. So I went for another job, which was a piecework job. This job was so tough. I left it in 2 weeks. I said, I can't take this. So I left it. So then I got a job at American Chain and Cable Company. And I used to run it was a rather dangerous job when I think of it now. I used to run a honer. It was 60 feet long, belts revolving at a rapid rate that sharpened the razor blades. They were on the holder. And at the end, I'd pick these blades up with the holders, walk them over, and put it into the tester. So that's what I was doing before I went into the service.
I want to go back to a couple of points. Talk a little bit about growing up in Stratford. Where did you live? What schools? Tell me the progression of schools you went to.
Oh, well, I lived on Raymond Street. The first school I went to was Franklin. I went there for 2 grades. Then they built Stony Brook School, which is a 4-grade school. They went from 1 to 4. So I went there to the 3rd and 4th grade, and then I went back to Franklin. And at Franklin School, 5th grade, I remember this so distinctly. This beautiful teacher, and her name was Miss Fleming. Well, I felt madly in love with her. Every day, even if I was sick, I went to school. And we had a speaking contest, and I won the speaking contest because I wanted to do it for her. So I won the speaking contest of the 5th grade. So I was also a contestant for the whole school, but I came in second. I remember Nicholas Spinelli beat me. He did the Charge of the Light Brigade. Then in the 6th grade, I did the same. Defensive Alamo. I won in the 6th grade, but I lost again. I was runner-up. I remember Margaret Thomas won. She did the house by the side of the road. So I remember one particular incident which I'm not proud of, but I had my report card. I had all A's, and I had a D in conduct. So I looked at it, not reasoning. The teacher was behind me. I said, "Why, the dirty Jew of a Jipper," and she was Jewish. So she grabbed me by the ear, and took me into the classroom, went over each grade, and told me all of what I did in conduct, how I pulled the girl's hair in front of me, how I dipped somebody's paper in the inkwell. She explained all these things. Now, do you think I was fair? I said to her, "I'm very sorry. You were more than fair, and it'll never happen again." So that was my grammar school experience. Then I went to, at that time, there was one high school in Stratford, which is also an intermediate. In other words, you went to 7th grade, 8th grade, and then 4 years of high school. So in 7th grade, we had, I remember English We had Shakespeare, Midsummer Night's Dream. We had, I also liked, when I was a junior, I had Hamlet by, I remember Miss June was the English teacher. But I enjoyed my high school very much. I loved, in fact, my senior year, I said, I'm going to go through this whole year without missing a day. And I did it, and I got a certificate. And I was sick a couple of times, but I went to school. So that's briefly I tried out for the, we were on the intramural league basketball team. We won the championship. We won it 18-17. At that time, there was a center jump, and I scored 11 points, and we won the championship. I was very much interested in sports, but I never had the ability my brothers had. I tried out for the track team. I remember Pender said, "Boy, I like your stamina and your ambition and your energy, John. I'm going to give you a uniform. You're going to race in the first race, and if you place, you're on the team." I said, "That's fair enough." So we were playing New Canaan. So I was a mild. First quarter I did good. The second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter I started my sprint too soon. I got into the lead. I was 10 yards ahead of everybody. But the last 100 yards, I was like running in mud. I could hardly move. One guy passed me, another guy passed me. I beat all the New Canaan guys. Mr. Penders came out and caught me. He thought I was going to fall on the cinder track. So that was my my sports career in high school.
Now,
This came on.
yes, you put that back on. Talk a little bit about Miss June.
Is it on right?
Yes. Tell me a little bit about Miss June.
All right. Miss June was my English teacher. And before that, my 2 years in high school, I used to get all A's and B's, but come springtime, it was sports. I told my English teacher I wasn't going to do any homework, wasn't going to do any work. And they said, "We'll flunk you." I said, "You can't. My average will carry me over." And it did. And finally, when I got to Miss June's class in my junior year, she knew my record. She said, "John," she said, "you know, someday you may want to go to college. And I know you have the ability, so why don't you stick through the whole year and do the best you can?" So she gave me a pretty good talking to, so I did that, and I ended up getting all A's and B's. I was in the Senex Cum Laude, the Honor Society. And we had a contest where we write a short story. So I wrote a short story. It was about sports. It was Hockey Players Can't Have Senate. I remember the title of the short stories. And she read it and she said to me, "John, where did you copy this?" I said, "I didn't copy it. I can't." She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, because I'm going to submit this to a national, the high school short story program." So she did that. And then she wanted me to be, I remember she said, "I want you to be the literary staff of the Log." I said, that's in spring, isn't it? We do that? Yes. "No, I can't do that." I said, "I'm in sports." And she grabbed my ear and says, "You're going to be on the literary staff." I says, "No, I'm not." Finally, she talked me into it, and I was on the literary staff of the Log. I wrote up the sports history of some of the sports we had, part of our class will. But as I look back, she had a great influence on my life and my outlook towards education.
And you said you graduated in what year?
I graduated in 1939.
And then you said something about, I'd like to hear more about this. What is what do you call it, CC?
Oh, the CC camp, Civilian Conservation Corps. It was It was a program that President Roosevelt instituted for young people out of high school who couldn't find work. And what we did, we built roads, we fought forest fires, and we did, in fact, a lot of the things that my brother was in, he went to Voluntown, Connecticut, but they sent me out to Split Rock, Wyoming. The CC was like similar to the WPA, except WPA was for the older people. In fact, the WPA built at Fairchild Wheeler, there's almost a mile-long stone wall that's about 6 feet wide, all bricks, no mortar, no cement. The WPA built that. So WPA helped build Fairchild Wheeler course.
When you were in Wyoming?
I was in Wyoming, Split Rock, Wyoming. We did work on roads, and also certain weekends we were on fire call in case there was a fire in the mountains. Well, the one week I was on, they did have a fire. So we went up in trucks, and the only way you fight fire up in the mountains, you don't have hoses or water. You take a fire line, you chop down all the trees, you make a fire line so the fire cannot stop at that point. So we did that, but the fires jumped, so we had to retreat, go back. But that night we had a terrific rainstorm, and that sort of helped it.
And you were there how long?
I was there only 6 months. Yeah.
So now, let's go to, you could talk about your family a little bit growing up. How many members were there in your family?
We had 8 members in the family. 8 members in the family. My oldest brother, he quit high school 16, and he became a apprentice oil burner mechanic, and that's what he did all his life. And Frank quit also. I was the first one to graduate from high school. But we were a close-knit family. Didn't have much money. In fact, we were, you might say, poor, very poor. In fact, I used to go to the bakery and buy 6 loaves of bread for 25 cents. We ate 6 loaves of bread a day, and then I used to go in back of the Franklin School. They were selling skim milk, and I'd have a chit. It was 5 cents a gallon. I'd buy 2 gallons of skim milk. So we drank 2 gallons of skim milk a day and ate 6 loaves of bread. We lived on bread and skim milk. But one thing I can say, during Depression, I was never hungry. I was never hungry. We never had much money, but I was never hungry. I remember once my mother sent me to the store. The check was like $6.85. I was to the Logan Brothers that time. I went to the store, and the clerk made a mistake. He thought it was $8, and he gave me $2 extra change. I didn't know what to do, so I said, Mom, I got to go back. I got to give this man the $2. And he gave me too much money. My mother says, we need it more than we do. I said, we need it more than he does. We keep it, she said. So I didn't go back. But my mother was a terrific lady. Well, the things she went through was amazing.
Let's pick up on now. When do you hear about there's a war breaking out? Where were you? What were you doing at that time when you heard the war?
When the war broke out, believe it or not, I was in the hospital in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I had some infection on my nose, and they couldn't, so they put me in the hospital in Cheyenne. I remember it was Labor Day weekend. It had Germany invades Poland, war is declared, England declared. England says we're no more appeasement. I was in the hospital in Cheyenne. I remember that very distinctly. I remember the headlines. That was in 1939 when at that time in our country, we were definitely isolationists. There was no way that was their war. Let them take care of it. It was our political attitude, and that's the way we felt. There was no way we were going to send anybody overseas. Of course, Pearl Harbor changed all that. But that was our.
And where were you when you hear about Pearl Harbor?
When I was listening to, it was 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. I was listening to a playoff football game between the New York Giants and the Baltimore Colts. They were playing for the NFL title, and that's when I heard they interrupted the program. They said, all officers, whatever you're doing, report to your base. All Army men, whatever you're doing, report to your base. There was about a 5-minute announcement on what happened at Pearl Harbor.
So now it's the end of 41.
End of 41, December 7th, 41, right.
Tell me what you did between the announcement of the war and you're going into the war.
Well, it sort of at the end of 41, the beginning of 42. See, they weren't. I wasn't going to be drafted. The draft worked opposite the way it did now. They drafted the guys from 38 to 31st. They worked down, and they're going to draft 21, but I wasn't 21 yet. So I decided I was going to join the Air Force and be a pilot. So I took the mental exam. They had it was about a good 4-hour test. But then in the physical, they said I had a heart murmur. So I went back to my my draft board. No, my draft board was going to draft me. I said I had the heart murmur, so they told me to go to see Dr. Gardner, and he checked me. He said, I don't know what's wrong with those guys up there. He said, there's nothing wrong with your heart. He says, if you want to be 4F, John, I'll give you 4F. So I said no, but I figured if I had a heart murmur, I wouldn't pass. So I wrote a letter to, that time I had taken a course in radio repair and maintenance. So I wrote to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii that said I'd like to be a radio technician. I told them all my credentials, and they said, fine, we'll pay your transportation over because we need technicians, but first you have to get a relief from your draft board. And the draft board told me, well, no, you're coming up for draft in about 3 or 4 weeks. So then I was drafted. When I was drafted, then I took they gave us you might call an IQ test. And everybody who scored over 110, they put in the Air Force. And I happened to score 126, so I was put in the Air Force and went into training.
So now you're in training. Where's your first assignment? Talk about that and what you were doing.
First we went from Fort Devens. I went to Miami Beach. From Miami Beach, they gave us aptitude tests, and they found out that they said, well, we're going to send you to radio school. So I was at Miami Beach for maybe 2 weeks. Then I went up to radio school to Scottsdale, Illinois. I spent 22 weeks there in what was it? It was 4 hours of theory and 4 hours of code. And I got to be able to receive code at about 25 words a minute. All you had to pass was 25. I mean 12. So.
What do you mean by code? I don't understand.
Oh, the Morse code. See, it's like the A was did da, B was da did it, C was da did da did. I still remember them. I could actually send code now. I could remember it. Like SOS is did it da 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 did it. That's SOS. S is did it. O is da da da, and S is did it. So it's did it da 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 did it. I don't know if you saw the ship about the Titanic. He was sending that SOS, and that's the way it sounded. Of course, I picked it right up.
So now you're in Miami.
Well, I went to radio school, 22 weeks there. After I finished there, they said, we need gunners badly. We need radio operators gunners. And they said they told us, I don't know, he was kidding. They said the average life of a gunner in combat is about 1 minute and 30 seconds. But then so they gave us a strict physical. It's called the 64, and I passed it. And it was strictly volunteer. So I volunteered. So I went to gunnery school in Tyndallfield, Florida. And we started with shooting skeet, then a moving target. Then we went up in an AT-6 and shot at a target in the air. I remember the first time I went up, I know my pilot was very mad. I shot the target down. I was hitting the target and I hit the rope. Imagine that shot. So the mission was wasted because, see, we had colored bullets and mine was red, somebody was blue, and they dropped that flag on the field and they look at it. So the whole mission was wasted. So we had to go up again.
So now you finished gunnery school.
I finished gunnery school. Then I went to what they call advanced combat training at Greenville, South Carolina. In other words, I was assigned. First, I had to go through complete tests to make sure I knew the radio backwards and forwards. Then we formed the crew, and we simulated bombing missions. Like we'd go to St. Louis and go back. We'd go to another. One test, we went to Florida. We flew across the Gulf of Mexico. It was called a load test to see how efficient our gas mileage was, so to speak. And that's the time when the pilot said, John, do you want to drive the plane for a while? I said, yeah. So I got up and I got the stick. Then I started fooling around, going right. He said, no, phone, just straight. So it was a good feeling to sit in the pilot's seat and here you are driving the B-25. Then after, then I went to not to Eglinfield. We were on sub patrol we flew in the Bermuda Triangle every day for 1 month. We did that and there a funny thing happened there. We went to town one day. And I was sitting at the bar, I was talking to this lovely woman, we were having a nice conversation, and this MP grabs me by the neck, knocks me off the chair, and says, I don't like your conduct, Sergeant. What do you mean, we're just talking? He says, he was yelling at me, everything. He said, I didn't do anything wrong. And I don't know, we got into an argument, and he said, if you sign the 104th Article of War, I'll let you go. 104th Article of War said, you're wrong. I said, I'm not signing anything. So he put me in jail for a night, and that was a terrible night. There was a guy with an ice pick in there. He was ready to jab somebody. It was dark. There were rats in there. And finally, he had to let me go because my commanding officer wanted to know where I was. So he had to let me go. So I went back to my outfit, and we were in Florida then, and we weren't allowed to go into town after that. So when I came back to Greenville, my commanding officer called me in. He says, tell me about this incident. Whatever happened in Florida? So I told him the whole story and everything. And he said, you sound like a level-headed guy. He said, I have a promotion to give. He made me staff sergeant. I couldn't get over it. I was a sergeant, they made me a staff because I did that. That's how promotions were in the Army.
So you're flying the Bermuda Triangle in a B-25?
Right, with bombs, ready to, if we see a sub, we're going to drop a depth bomb on it.
Were there any incidents during?
No incidents. We never spotted a sub or anything.
Talk a little bit about what is B-25? How many members of the crew?
We have a pilot, a co-pilot, a bombardier navigator. He does both jobs. He's a navigator. When he comes to the target, he's a bombardier. And then we have radio operator gunner, which I was, Then we have a flight engineer, which kept tabs on all the how the plane was running, kept the oil pressure, RPMs. He studied that because the pilot's attention was on other things. And then we had a turret gunner above. We had 6 crew members. Every man knew his job, and we got along pretty good.
Was it the same crew continuously?
Yeah, it was the same crew, but when we went overseas, they separated us. They didn't want green. They didn't want a pilot. And I went with experienced crew. My pilot went with experienced crew. My co-pilot. So after about 10 or 15 missions, then they brought us together again. But we flew with experienced crews because they didn't want us to fly as a crew. But the same crew all went overseas together.
Okay, so let me back up now. You're flying these missions over the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
How many missions and for how long were you doing that?
We were doing that for about a month and a half.
Okay, and then at some point in time, you were then reassigned. Where did you go to be sent to the South Pacific? Where did you go next?
Oh, we went after I finished my training. I didn't have a furlough yet. They said, "We're sending you. You're gonna go to the South Pacific. You're gonna go overseas." They didn't say where. So we said, "What do you mean we're gonna go overseas?" I said, "Right now," I says, we're going AWOL. We're leaving. We're going. We got to get home. I don't care if you give up for." So finally, the captain said, "Don't get excited." I said, "We'll give you a delay en route, which is, you can stay 2 weeks home, then you come back, and from there, we took the. Did we take a train that we flew? We took a train. We flew into San Francisco. We stayed in San Francisco about 3 or 4 days. Went to town a couple of times. San Francisco is beautiful. You look over the hills and you see the town, and then from there we took a huge transport plane, flew to Hawaii. They didn't have a radio operator, so I got the job of doing the radio. I radioed position reports every 200 miles, and then from Hawaii to Johnson Island, from Johnson Island to the Fijis. In the Fijis, I saw that movie. What was that movie on the Army? We saw a good movie there. From there, we went to Noumea and up to Guadalcanal and into combat.
Okay, let me back up a second. You said you hadn't seen your family now.
Right, all that time.
How much time?
That was pretty close to 15 months. I hadn't had a furlough.
You hadn't had a furlough. That means you can go home.
Right.
That's a leave.
Right.
So 15 months you don't see your family.
And they were sending us overseas.
But you did go home before
Oh,
you went
yeah.
overseas for 2 weeks?
Yeah, right.
Talk about that. How did you take a train? How did you get home?
Oh,
did you meet?
yeah. Well, I took the train home, and well, I met. It was taking the train. It was, see, at that time, the servicemen were everything. On the train, ladies would give me a seat. I'd say no. And if I went into a bar room, I could not buy a drink. My butcher, what was his name? He saved me T-bone steaks that were going. He said, "I got some for you," and butter, which was hard to get. Grisbala, yeah, you got a good man. That's Grisbala, right? I went to see Grisbala, and he said, "John, I got something for you." So I mean, we were treated like I hadn't been overseas. I was just in the army, and just to show you the difference that the servicemen were treated in World War I and Vietnam. Vietnam, they were spit on. Here, we were honored. We were considered. I mean, they couldn't do enough for us, it seemed.
So you see your family.
Yeah.
You reunite with your family.
Right.
And you spent 2 weeks at home.
Right.
Okay, knowing that you're heading back and you're going to be sent overseas.
Right.
So you you were back, let's go back now, you ended up in the South Pacific on, what was your staging operation from where?
Well, we started from Guadalcanal, but we stayed there for a while. We didn't fly missions from Guadalcanal. We went to Sterling Island, and that's where we flew the missions from Sterling Island. That's one of the pictures that Quonset hut was on Sterling Island. And as we said before, they broke up the crew because they didn't want inexperienced guys to stay in one. We all flew with experienced people.
Can you recall your first?
Oh yeah. My first mission, it wasn't too bad. We hit a place in Bougainville, which was almost like considered a milk run. The flak was very minimal. They shot a few things up at us, and we bombed the camp there. But then our missions at Ball were much tougher. And I used to look back, we'd see the flak that we went through. I couldn't believe we got through it. I remember it must have been about the 5th or 6th mission. We flew from Sterling Island to, I forget the island we hop off of. And my pilot, he was an experienced pilot, he almost killed us landing. Boy, the landing was, then he was shaking like this. He came over, he apologized to us. He says, I can't fly, I'm out. He was almost, he was talking like gibberish. I can't fly, I gotta quit, I can't go. So they grounded the whole crew as they put him on leave, I guess, because I guess he had cracked up completely. And the crew that they took our flight, they got shot down. But in fact, I remember I'm coming back to camp, and they said, Lubas, they said, we heard you got shot down. And I told them, no, the plane that got shot down, they made a water landing in the Pacific. They're all saved, and they came back. But I mean, as fate would have it,
Take us through a mission from the time that you find out the mission in 94, going out and so forth. Talk about what it's like to go on a mission.
Well, it was funny, they used to post the missions at about 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. And I didn't want to go out and look at it. Nobody didn't want to look at them, who was flying or what the target was. But somebody would usually go out with a flashlight and look at it, and they'd say, hey, Lubas, you're flying tomorrow. Hey, tell us you're flying tomorrow. But I'd rather not hear it. But even though I was going on a mission, I slept very well. I can honestly say I slept beautifully, and it didn't bother me. The next day, I was about Pappy Turner, this guy. He always used to kid me. We used to play chess together. He was the oldest guy in our outfit. He was 26 years old. He was a playboy from Boston, had his own plane, and we used to play chess together. And he'd say, John, let's play our last chess game together, because I know one of us isn't coming back after today, because we're both flying. I said, Pappy, don't talk like that. He always said, let's just enjoy the chess, forget about it. He'd laugh like anything. I remember it was about 2 weeks later, I came out of the bed, I met him. He was shaking like a leaf. He couldn't. I said, what's wrong, Pappy? He said, I don't know. He says, my heart's beating crazy. I'm weak. I can't even pick up my, what should I do? I said, go to the flight surgeon. Tell them, don't go on a mission. You feel like that. So he went to the flight surgeon, and they grounded him, and they put him into a rear area. And I wrote to him a couple of times. Then I lost track of him. But it just goes to show you, the guy who was always kidding about it, he was the one that... Imagine, we were all young. He was 26 years old, and he was the oldest guy in the outfit. We were all 20, 21, 22, all.
So go back to your mission. You take off, what, like in the morning?
Yeah,
How long?
Well, we'd have our briefing. They brief us on the target, what to expect, everything. And after the briefing, we take off and we pick up, especially ball, we pick up, because our ball had about 250, 300 zeros. So if we try to fly alone without fighter support, we'd have been decimated and never made it. So we used to pick up Corsairs, maybe about 40, 50 of them, P-38s and P-39s and P-40s. And they're about halfway to the mission, they fly with us, and about, I'd say 10 or 15 minutes before we got there, you could see the dust of the Zeros coming up to meet us, and our fighters going to meet them to protect us, because we were able to drop the bombs before a fighter got to us. And the bomb was roughly a 3-minute run. So we first start, and the guy would settle on the target and everything. Then he dropped, go up 100 feet or drop 100 feet, because off on the left, about maybe 3,000 feet, a Jap Zero would be calling out our altitudes to the flak gunners downstairs. They'd set the fuse, and the final 1 minute, we were sitting ducks. We had to fly straight for the bombardier to get there, and that's when the flak you'd see it all around you. And we had one mission, a 90 millimeter went right through the nose of the ship. Of course, if it exploded, I wouldn't be here, but it went right, exploded maybe 200-300 feet above us. And I remember the gunner, he was going to drop the bombs, because the lead ship bombardier would do the bombs, and the guys following would just operate the bomb doors and just hit a toggle and they'd drop. And he was dropping a bomb. He had a chute in his hand. He was going to jump out of the ship. They had to grab him and come back. His face was all bloody, the little bits of plexiglass. But we made it back all right. No problem. But that was a scary one. Well, another time, we came out of our bombing mission, and the Jap Zero came out of the sun right at us. And I guess the pilot saw him, and he went into evasive action. So he dropped down suddenly. I lost my balance completely. And coming down, I just happened to grab the 50 caliber gun, and I happened to hit the trigger and fired as he was going by. I could see the red ball and everything. Of course, I missed him, but the pilot says, "I'm glad somebody's alive back there," and I'm shooting back there. It was all an accident. And but then he knew, I guess he was aiming for the pilot, but he didn't get him, and coming back, he knocked out our hydraulic system. So I had to lower the wheels mechanically. I had to, it's quite a job getting a lock loose. I had to take the earphones, the cord. I finally got it loose. Of course, I'm in contact with the pilot all the time. And I said, "Okay, I'm all set. I'm going to start winding the wheels down." He says, "Okay, John, start doing it. I'll tell you when to stop." Because he had the instruments in front. It would say down and locked. So he kept going and going. Finally, he said, "It's okay, down and locked. It's all set." So then he said, "How do the tires look?" I said, "On the right, I don't see. On the left," I said, "I see holes in the nacelle." I said, "So that left tire must be flat or something." So he said, "Okay, thanks." So what a landing he made, because if he didn't know that, if he ground looped, we'd been all killed. It would blow up the plane. He braked this and let this go. We went down the runway like that, and we made it all safe. Pilot did a fantastic job. His name was Jensen. He wasn't our regular pilot. He was the experienced pilot. His name was Jensen, and we thanked him for it. Of course, the ambulance came up. They thought someone was hurting there. They were all ready to help us out. And they were disappointed. They said, "No blood." Oh. They drove back. "Oh, you guys disappointed us," he said.
Talk about the crew members that you met.
Oh yeah, well, the pilot was a character. He was a lot of fun. Spicer. I called him Spice. I remember when we were training in Florida, we were in the hangar, and he was about 30 feet away. I said, "Hey, Spice, you want a Coke?" He said, yeah, get me one. I didn't know there was a colonel standing next to me. Boy, did he yell, "Sergeant, standing, is that the way you address an officer of the United States Army?" I says, "No, sir." "How do you address an officer?" I says, "Lieutenant Spicer, would you mind you keep that attitude from now on?" So Spicer said, "Don't pay attention to him," he said. Because overseas there was, I can understand why some of these guys from Vietnam want to go back. Because overseas there was a certain camaraderie. You didn't express it, but you knew it was there. You knew everybody knew their job. You knew everybody cooperated. And there was a certain feeling that you got that I guess you can't explain it until you're there yourself. Both of you facing, maybe you're going to all die together and live together, hopefully. And I can see why some of these guys want to go back to that feeling. Of course, I didn't. When I came back, when I came back, there was no such thing as a double tour. When I finished my tour, they said, "You're finished unless you want to volunteer." So they were, not like Vietnam, they have a double, not Vietnam, Iraq. They have a double tour, triple tour.
You mentioned, I think it's Spicer.
Spicer, yeah.
What was his first name?
Bud.
Spicer.
Bud Spicer. I always call him Spice.
Who else do you recall from your crew?
Well, Pushnik, the engineer, we had a lot of fun. Goolsby was a southerner from Georgia with a drawl, very quiet but efficient. Didn't talk too much. And the co-pilot, what was his name? I forget his name, but I remember the co-pilot. We were on a mission to. This was back in the States. I'm going back now. We were on one of our practice missions, and we landed at Shreveport, and we had engine trouble, and so we had to stay there a couple of days. And I just had my flight coveralls, and I wanted to go out. And the co-pilot says, "Listen, we're the same size, John. Take my uniform." So I dressed up as a lieutenant, and a guy saluting me. So that was quite an experience. So coming back, our colonel said, "If you guys don't come back the next day, you're going to be all court-martialed. You'll be there a week." He didn't believe that there was something wrong with the plane. He said, "You guys, I know you guys are having a good time down there." So we took off. We hit I think it was in Alabama. The right engine caught fire. So there's flame coming out of the right engine. The pilot rails back to me, "John," he says, "open the hatch, put on your chute, get ready to jump. When I tell you to jump, you jump." So I did that, put up in the hatch, ready to go. Finally, somehow he got the fire out. And then we're flying along. We went into a thunderhead. That plane must have dropped 6,000 feet in I don't know how many seconds. It was just twirling, twisting, and everything. So we got out of that and finally landed at Greenville. And when the crew chief, the head of the mechanic, he says, "I don't know how you guys made it. There was a hole this big in the firewall where the fire had burned out." He said, and then I guess the colonel then believed us.
So you mentioned a couple of members of the crew.
Yeah.
Anybody else of the crew that you remember, particularly as many of your missions?
The colonel. The colonel. He was a short guy, very cocky, and
You remember his name?
oh geez, I forgot his name. But I know he always used to call me Lube. When he'd be training new pilots, he'd say, "Lube, I'm training new pilots. You want to fly with me?" Of course, I couldn't say no. I'd say yes. He said, "Okay, meet me down the flight line at 2 o'clock. So I'd go and be waiting in the B-25 because there was a standing rule in the Air Force that you couldn't take a B-25 off the ground unless you had a radio operator. You didn't have to have a flight engineer, a co-pilot, or anything else. You had to have a radio engineer, a radio operator. So he always used to. I was in good terms with him. He was there when I was overseas when my father died, and he came over to me and he says, "John, I got bad news for you." Tony says, "You can't make it back in time." At that time, it'd take a day to get it. It'd take 4 days to get to San Francisco. Take another 3 days to get. So he said, "Listen, the next 3 days of ground, you no fly, and just try to relax." So I spent 3 days there, and I know my brother George. He went home, but he was in. I guess he was in the States, so he was able to get home.
Was he in the service group?
Oh yeah, he was a paratrooper. He was taken prisoner of war.
Where?
In Germany, the Battle of the Bulge. Yeah, he was a POW. In fact, I was on furlough when I got the telegram, because he answered the telegram. I read it. My mother said, "Oh, he's." I says, "No, this is prisoner of war. He's not killed in action." I went to the library and I looked up Time magazine, and it said the Battle of the Bulge. Quite a few prisoners were taken. So I said, he's probably a prisoner there. So I had a 2 weeks furlough stay. So I wired the Red Cross. I wanted another 2 weeks. So they gave me a week, but I took another week anyway. So when I came back to Atlantic City, there was a note on my desk. "The captain wants to see you." So he said, "Sergeant, you know you're AWOL for a week?" I said, "I realized that, but the circumstances were such that I just got the message." He says, "I know that. A lot of people know that, but," he says, "but if you have that attitude, those stripes, you won't keep those stripes very long." So then he said, "Okay, don't let it happen again." But,
so your brother was in paratrooper. Were there any other members of your family?
yeah, Frank was in Guam and the Philippines.
In the Army?
Frank.
He was in the Army.
Yeah, he was in Guam, and he was in the Battle of the Philippines also.
So
he was in the infantry.
He saw combat.
Yeah. All three of us saw. And George was in a card game, and an hour later he was in the front line. Because the Battle of Bulge came, they went in, all these guys, "We need you out in the front."
Okay, let's go back to your mission and talk a little bit more about where did you bomb? What island? What were you bombing? Bases, ships?
Yeah, we were basically, our basic target was Rabaul, because we had to stop them. We had to neutralize Rabaul, and that was, we spent most of our, I'd say, 7 or 8 months overseas was bombing Rabaul. And after Rabaul, we went to New Guinea, and then we were bombing the southern Philippines, and then we were bombing in the Celebes, we were bombing the oil fields, the Balikpapan oil fields in the Celebes. That was a real long mission, because we were on the other end of New Guinea.
And you say long mission, in terms of flight time, what was the longest flight you had to get to?
Well, it was the Celebes. It was about a 5-hour flight to get there and 5 hours back. We had to carry extra tank in the Bombay gas, so we only had to take one. We only could carry one bomb. But ordinarily, our flights were 5 hours, 2.5 hours one way, 2.5 hours, 3 maybe at the most. That was our range.
In the same place at the Sterling Island, was it?
Yeah, we were stationed there most of the time. Then we went to, I said New Guinea, Finchhaven. We went to Hollandia, and then up to Biak. And we were bombing islands.
Each of those places were locations where you were billeted, where you stayed.
Right. And from there we bombed islands around. Not, some of them were sort of, you might say, milk runs, easy missions. But one of them that I thought was an easy mission, it really shook me up. We were 3 planes were running. We were bombing, and it was cloudy, and we didn't know the Japs had radar control guns. And the guy side of me, 30 feet away, I saw a direct hit, went right into smithereens. He just, nobody got out of the chute. To change his spirit, we watched it crash, go down. I mean, just like that it happened. I said, boy, that could have been me. That could have been just like that. It came out of nowhere, a direct hit. And this was supposed to be a fairly easy mission, they said. The easy missions they call milk runs. But what was good about, see, when we finished the mission, I'd say that was, I had that, of course, we'd go to briefing, talk about the bombs, the targets, and anything anybody wanted to say about the mission. And then they'd give us a shot of Gibson's Rye. And boy, I used to take that shot, and I used to go right to sleep for 2 hours. I slept like a log. One good thing about it, I slept very good there. I never got this nervous trauma, so to speak, that some of the guys suffer in combat. I'm just lucky, that's all. I could have happened to me just as well as anybody else.
Talk a little bit about what it was like when you were at base. About, for example, about the meals, about accommodations, and so forth.
Yeah, our meals weren't that great because our bread was good. We had a good baker, baked us bread, but some of the other meals were not that great. What we used to do, we used to fly to Australia and buy fresh eggs, tomatoes, and everything for about 4 or 5 days. We'd have good meals. Then we used to have, this is interesting, we used to go to Guadalcanal, which was about where we were. It was about an hour, 2-hour flight. We used to go to Guadalcanal, pick up beer, because we get 6 beers a month. We pick up beer. I remember I went once, and the pilot takes the plane up to 20,000 feet. We cool the beer off so it's nice and cold. I remember one mission, Roger Bacon, his name was, from Hartford, Connecticut. They picked up the beer, flying back. They lost one engine, just failed on them. So the plane started losing altitude. They threw out about $3 million radio equipment to save the beer. They kept throwing everything out to save the beer. Couldn't do it. Finally, they made a water landing, and PBY picked them up. But from the States, he showed us the article that his plane wasn't shot down. A plane landed in Jap-infested waters, and they were saved by a PBY. They said nothing about the beer. We remember Roger Bacon's beer run.
So, what about communicating back home? Were you getting letters?
Oh yeah, I was getting some of the letters I wrote back. They used to say it was all spaced out. They cut out, you know. I thought I must have mentioned things that they didn't want me to hear about. But I get letters from back home, and I'd write to them. I remember one poker game I won about $800. I sent it home. My mother was working there, her foot press, and she got that money. I told her, spend it on yourself. She took the summer off, went to Pleasure Beach every day with Mrs. Paterla. They had a ball, and when I come back, there was still $700 in the account. She must have only spent the amazing.
So, all in all, how many missions did you fly?
45.
45 missions.
45 missions.
And you get a medal for every 5.
Every 5 missions, right?
And what is that called?
Air medal.
An air medal.
Right.
So you have a total of how many, not what is 9?
Well, that what they give you an air medal, and that for every other one they give you what they call an oak leaf cluster that you add to rather than another air medal, an OLC, an oak leaf cluster. So I had 8 oak leaf clusters, oak leaf clusters plus the air medal.
Did you ever see any Bob Hope or people like this?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We saw Bob Hope. Bob Hope was there. Oh, Bob Hope was terrific. He said, "There's." I remember one joke he said. He said, "I know it's tough out here." He says, "You have no girls around, nothing, but I bet you have the solution in your hands." And not only that, while they were giving their little speech, they were under like a little covering of one of these rain showers come out. Rain showers in the South Pacific are drenching, so they're under. And Jerry Colonna gets under the rain shower and imitates a GI taking a shower. And Frances Langford, we heard her saying out there, yeah. I guess Bob Hope was all over. Yeah, we saw Bob Hope out in the South Pacific. And our only entertainment, you might say, was volleyball. We had the radio men, the gunners, and the flight engineers teams. And we used to play volleyball, 9 guys on each side. And boy, the button was huge, $100 on this, $100. And I remember we ended up being the champions. We had this guy about 6'4", 6'5", and when his turn, you rotate, when we put him in the center, boy, we'd get point after point after point. But no, I don't remember his name. Son of a gun. But we had those volleyball games were fantastic. Oh, everybody's watching them, cheering. It's almost like a Super Bowl, boy. And the money was being bet. Oh, guys were betting $50. I'll bet you this guy makes so many. I'll bet you this guy.
Is there anything else about the surface in your time over there that any other events that you want to talk about? I just like to talk about the attitude we had. The guys flying, all of us, no one ever felt they were a hero because no one ever felt special because we felt there's thousands of guys just like us doing the same thing. There were so many of us doing the same thing. So there's nothing special about what we're doing. We all were involved in it. And I don't know, the attitude we had in World War II was fantastic. I wish we could have that attitude today. I mean, it was I don't know, we didn't think of ourselves. That's the only way I can put it. We thought of the other guy. We thought even though we didn't express it, it was there. You knew your buddy was on your side. You knew it. Even though he never expressed it, you just knew it intuitively. And it was, the overseas experience was great as far as concerned. I'm glad I was over there. I'm glad I flew those missions. I'm glad I feel I was lucky that I came back alive. Because I didn't think I would. But I think my mother used to pray for us every day, she said. And I'm sure those prayers must have helped. But it was a wonderful experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, really. No, I didn't, because they're from California. Our crew was from California, out west, and from Georgia, and we never got together. Where were you when the war ended? Were you still in the Pacific? Oh, no. When the war ended, I was at Miami Beach. I came back 1944. I figured the war would not end until
48, because we had just got, I don't think we had the Philippines yet. I figured this island hopping is going to take, we used to say, what was the saying, the Golden Gate in 48, something, because we figured the war was going to last 3 or 4 more years. I didn't know about the atomic bomb. So I got home in December of 44, I got home. Then I went to Atlantic City, rehabilitation. I stayed there for, they called it rehabilitation. I had a hotel room. I could do anything I want during the day, go to a movie, do this. And then they asked me, what did I want to do now? I says, what do you got? And I named me some things. They said, we have a opening down in Boca Raton, Florida for a radar instructor. How would you like that? I said, I'll take that. So I went down. I was finished the course. I was ready to be a radar instructor. They made radar instructors essential. I'd be in the service another 2 years. I had enough points to get out, but I couldn't get out because of my MOS rating, military official specification of radar. So a civilian got me a job on the flight line. I worked on the flight line. I worked with a captain. The captain and I had a special office. We were together, and I used to tabulate all the results of their practice bombing missions. And I remember that job was 6 to 12. I used to come in at 8 and finish my job at 10:30. Had everything done. And I remember the captain said, he said, what are your hours, Sergeant? I says, 6 to 12. I said, what time you usually come in? I said, I usually come in at 8 and I finish at about 10:30, 11. But he knew everything I did was perfect because he didn't say anything. I used to also give tests to officers, code tests, 7 words a minute. I used to say, why don't you pass this, Sergeant? We'll never use it. Oh, no. You pass 7 words or you're not getting out of here. I could talk to the officers like that.
So that I understand it, when you completed your 45th mission, you knew at that time you were done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because...
So what was it like going on that 45th mission?
Well, I didn't know at the 45th. I knew after. After the 45th mission, then the colonel came up to me and said, John, I got good news for you. He says, your replacement's in. He says, you're grounded. So I used to go down the flight line and cheer the guys on. I'd say, remember this? You're doing this to save democracy, boys. Get in there and fight. And they used to say, yeah, you're going home. We know.
So you go, you're at Boca Raton. Is that when you hear that the war is officially over?
In fact, I was in Miami Beach when I heard it was officially over. I went to Miami Beach, and that's when I heard the paper. Not when it was officially over. I heard when they dropped the atomic bomb. I should say, big headline, atomic bomb. I think that was August 8th. They dropped the first atomic bomb. That's when it was officially over. Where was I when it was officially over? I was still in the service, I know, because I got out in October 9th. Yeah, I guess.
Okay, let's pick up on that. So now you're getting ready to be discharged.
Right.
And you were discharged. You were still down in Florida, and now they give you your official discharge.
Right.
So now pick up from there.
Well, I had to get my discharge at Fort Devens, so we took the Silver Meteor up to New York and then to Devens, and I know with I met 3-4 servicemen, and we were playing hearts.
I'm going to stop this event. I'm stopping this. Okay.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about the mission where we were expecting 90% casualties. We were at Bayak in New Guinea, 2 o'clock in the morning. They woke us up, flew us to Morotai, which is an island about 200 miles south of the Philippines, and there was a big naval battle going on. So we were loaded with bombs. We were going to go at low level, skip bomb, and they expected 90% casualties. So there we are in the middle of the night saying, well, we're saying goodbye to each other. This is it. And so we're just, well, we're kidding around too, I guess, and we're talking. And finally, the message comes back. They're out of range, you're not going. Of course, we have big cheer went up. Yay! So we flew back to New Guinea. But that was a close one.
Now, did you were you able to bathe and?
Oh yeah. We had this. We set up this stuff with 50 gallons. The sun would heat it. We had hot water showers, and we were on a hill. And below the hill, there was a road that the nurses traveled back and forth. So when we take a shower, we'd rub off with a towel, put the towel around us, and we walk along. And if we saw a nurse coming along, we took the towel off and waved to them. They in turn waved back happily. One of the nurses said, we should send John a sympathy card. I thought I'd just add that in for humor.
Okay, so the war's over. You're getting your discharge, and now let's pick up coming home.
Oh yeah, we go to Devon's. That's where my discharge was taking place, and we had good meals at Devon's. We had good meals, but the KP was done by these German prisoners, which were like, they looked like 17, 16, 17 scared kids. They would serve us and everything. I remember some of the guys would say, hey, Kraut, put some more on or something. But they were these scared kids. But I guess they were glad to be doing this and being in Germany. But it certainly didn't look like a super race to me.
So you're discharged from that Fort Devens?
Yeah, that was at Fort Devens where they had all the German, they were doing all the KP work, doing washing the dishes, and then they serve us as we buy the meals. They serve us the potatoes, the meat, and everything. They toss it in, and they were all the youngest blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids. They looked like 12 years old, some of them.
So you get your discharge and then you head home.
You're right.
Talk about coming home.
Oh, well, we came home,
When
and
you said we, you weren't alone?
well, I'm talking about all of us. I use the term we, all of us, editorial we, you might say. When I got home, of course, we wanted to relax, and there was such a thing as the 5220 Club. And the servicemen were all eligible to join that. This 5220 Club was, for 52 weeks, the government, you would get $20 a week. So we used to go up to employment, get our checks. We usually have our golf clubs with us or something. And so for about 6 or 8 months, I was drinking beer, playing golf, doing all these things, just relaxing. And finally I said, I got to do something with my life. I can't go on like this. But I think that was a good period that I did that, went through that. And then I decided to go to college under the GI Bill of Rights. So we had to take an aptitude test. And I took an aptitude test, and the guy that told me, you know what your aptitude is? And I said, no. He says, actor, comedian. So, and I want to be an engineer. He said, you can't take too much stock in these. So I wanted to go into teaching first. I wanted to go teaching. Teachers at that time were making $2,000 a year. Engineers were making close to $4,000, $330. So I said, I can't go into teaching. I can't even support a family if I go into teaching. $2,000 a year. So I always wanted to be a teacher, but I went into engineering. Then I went to UB and transferred, went to Catholic University. worked at dictaphone, raised a family, got 4 lovely children, all doing very well, and life has been good to me. God has been good to me.
Did you join any veteran?
Oh, I was American Legion, and well, the ARP after I turned 50.
With the American Legion, did you also join the VFW?
No, I didn't join the VFW. I joined the American Legion.
So you're not active in any of those organizations?
Not really, no.
Tell them why.
What?
Tell them why you didn't join me. His wife thought he'd become an alcoholic.
Because they do a lot of drinking.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war and about the military in general?
Yes, the military. One of the things well, I noticed when I was overseas, all our crew members were white. We didn't have a black guy in our outfit. And then, of course, I read about that tremendous black squadron, the Fly, and the white guys used to want to have them to, God, they were so good. So that's you might say one of the negative things. But on the whole, it was a positive experience. The military is, in other words, you do your job and you're recognized for it. That's the only way you do your job, you're recognized. If you don't do your job, be careful, because you're going to get in trouble. But if you do your job, you're recognized for it, you get all the privileges and everything. But if you try to goof off, watch it. That's one of the main things I learned in the military. So.
And finally, how would you describe how the experiences in the service and war and so forth affected your life? What would you say about that?
Well, it affected my life. It gave me a perspective on life. It gave me a perspective that you're not the only pebble on the beach. You're not a special person. Don't think you are. Because if you're special, then everybody's special. So it sort of gave me a camaraderie, a feeling of, I don't know, how to explain it, a feeling that we're all together. We're all together. We're always one. What affects me affects you. What you do affects me. It's sort of that feeling. It's hard to put in words, but that's the feeling I got from the military. It's a group experience. The bad thing about it, you're never alone. You shower with somebody, you sleep with somebody, you eat with somebody. You're never alone. That's the thing I missed. I wanted to have a few times where I can meditate, but it's very difficult in the military. There's always somebody with you. In a way, that's good, and in a certain way, it's a disadvantage. But there's always someone to talk to, always somebody around, always.
Well, John, this concludes our interview. Unless there's anything else you would like to add in conclusion.
No, that's it. That's about it. I hope I haven't forgotten anything.
Well, I want to. Now you're how old again?
I'm 89. I'll be 90 January 8th.
Well, it's been a pleasure interviewing you, and I want to thank you on behalf of this country for serving and protecting our country. Thank you.
Thank you.